Good morning and welcome to Morning Java, sponsored as always by our friends at Citrix GoToMeeting, the online meeting solution that hosts more than 60 million meetings a year. Learn more at gotomeeting.com. Joined today by Lance Lysowski, our Pitt beat writer.
Good morning.
Good morning to you as well. Let's talk a little bit of why not Pitt Penn State. There's going to be all kinds of build up to other events as it relates to the Pitt family, specifically football, but let's not pretend that that's not going to be the big one around here.
That's what everybody's talking about. I mean, even when Pitt announced that it was going to have beer sales stadium-wide at Heinz Field, everyone wants to know, well, how's this going to affect Pitt and Penn State? Did this have anything to do with how much they think they're going to lose out on money if they don't do it? This is all everybody's talking about. And it really makes you think that, I mean, Pitt wants to do this in perpetuity. I can't imagine why Penn State wouldn't want to.
Well, that's the thing. I liked hearing from Scott Barnes that he wants to pursue it. He doesn't pretend that he's above it the way Steve Petersen did. And that goes not just for Penn State, but also for West Virginia. What is Barnes' motivation? Is it just the obvious?
Well, I think it's the one thing that he's really emphasized since he took over is fan experience. He cares what these people think. He wants people in the stands at Heinz Field, and they want to see big games. They don't want to go watch Villanova or Youngstown State. They want major FBS teams coming into Heinz Field, and what better matchup for them to bring in here than Penn State and West Virginia on a regular basis?
If you think about it, though, that approach is such a no-brainer, too, because this isn't like, basketball where there's RPI and you're worried about that kind of stuff. You're talking about just filling the seats with your non-conference games. That's it. Because once they get to ACC play, how they did against Penn State or West Virginia or whoever doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't. I mean, and if you get a win, it's great. If you lose a game, and especially now, Pitt, if a lot of people don't expect them, I mean, spread aside, people will expect, well, it's Penn State. This is Big Ten. They have the history of football. Pitt, it's, well, if you win, great. If you lose, well, it's the first of the rivalry. But the excitement it brings and everything that Pitt wants to do, especially under Scott Barnes, is bring excitement back to that program. And what better way to do that than to reintroduce those
games? With
games?
Real rivalry games, exactly. Let's talk about this beer thing. Now, for clarification here, Pitt does not do beer at the Petersen Event Center other than in those suites that are down at courtside. And they didn't do that at Heinz Field other than in the luxury boxes. There's 65,000 people. I mean, in theory, when you put everybody in there, if it's a Notre Dame game or a Penn State game, why? Why? Money. But okay, beyond that.
Well, to go with it, I think that Scott Barnes really pointed out, on Monday afternoon when he met with the media, that he wants to get people not only to come to the games, but he wants them to stay there when they get there. Everybody knows when you go to a game, you have a beer, you don't want to just have some before the game. You want to keep drinking, the hangover, that whole thing. But he wants the fan experience, and this is part of it. I think a lot of college football programs are going in this direction, and when you have Heinz Field, which has the security in place, the personnel that's experienced to handle, any unruly
fans.
I didn't want to say it. I'm glad you
just say it. Okay.
They have the experience dealing with that. So this isn't anything new. They have regulations in place, and Pitt really, they brought this to the chancellor's office. They really brainstormed ideas. They talked to every Power 5 school that's doing it to get ideas that, what's the biggest obstacle?
Okay, devil's advocate here. I haven't really thought this through, so this isn't necessarily a stance of mine, but if you're saying on one hand that you want to enhance the fan experience, and on the other hand, getting everybody drunk. No, I'm being serious here. How do those things dovetail?
Well, and that's the thing.
I'm saying, full disclaimer here, I don't drink and whatever, and when I'm around people who are drunk, I just kind of whatever. Okay, but I know that, from press boxes, we watch interaction with fans, and the ones who are drunk or really drunk can make things pretty miserable for everyone around them.
They can. I think that Pitt's staff recognized that drinking was going on anyways in the parking lots leading up to the games. So you have binge drinking.
No, it was not.
You have binge drinking. When you have fans who start at 6 a.m.
So they said, well, we'll just make that money.
And he brought up how it could curb binge drinking for college students, that sort of thing. And let's face it, it's about money. You're losing a lot of revenue here. That's
Honestly,
what it's all about.
that's-
I mean, he is saying it is about fan experience, but when it comes down to it, when you have
You're
that
not
Penn
adding
State,
alcohol for fan experience.
you are not
You're
adding
it for money.
And then he did add the little caveat that, well, it's about the family fan experience too. And a lot of people are saying, well, how does that really fit with adding beer sales at the stadium? I think this is something where Scott Barnes' big thing since he got here was we want to compete with the ACC. We want to do what other college football programs of that magnitude are doing. Well, those programs were selling beer at stadiums.
He said that added to the family fan experience?
He said that in the same exact sentence.
Why would he say that? That's like telling us that this was actually the basketball coach that you wanted.
Well, I think that it was all about bringing the atmosphere to Heinz Field. I am not Scott Barnes.
I will say this. I will say this, and I haven't disliked or liked everything that Scott Barnes has done here. But this is Pittsburgh. You got to shoot straight with people, man. This thing where you're trying to BS people, it just doesn't fly here. As we gear toward the start of the Pitt football camp, there's always that one guy somewhere who maybe makes some waves, or there's people talking about him in the summertime. Now, in Pitt's case, we're obviously, everyone's, for all kinds of reasons, looking at James Conner. But what about beyond him? Is there a wild card player that maybe you've heard something about that has, gotten himself into some kind of phenomenal shape and is ready to make a huge impact?
Well, it's been since the spring, Dayon. It's Quadri Henderson, the wide receiver. And the way that he has that explosiveness, he's a guy that, I remember last year, Tyler Boyd, they tried to use him in a variety of reasons, whether it was good or bad.
Anything
on sweeps.
to get him the ball.
They did whatever they could to get him the ball, and especially on sweeps, screens. This is the guy that they're going to try to do whatever it takes to get to the football to, because of that breakaway speed, because of that ability to make plays. And he's not your guy you're going to throw 20 yards downfield to unless it's a broken play and he burns a guy. This is a guy that they're going to really set up. They're going to have design plans for Quadri Henderson.
I was going to say,
set.
it sounds like, at the risk of putting undue pressure on the kid, that they want him to be Tyler.
I think that Tyler's more of a possession guy. He was more of a guy that can go downfield.
Tyler could break it too.
He could break it too.
He had his own weird way of doing it. He could all sweep the whole way around somebody, but he'd figure it out.
Tyler was very good at the line of scrimmage. He can get past those corners in the bump and run. Quadri's not that type of player.
Yeah,
he can't make. Quadri Henderson's the guy that you give him the ball in space, he can make guys miss, and he can turn a 3-yard loss into a 50-yard gain. And it's the type of player that Pitt fans are really excited about because they've missed that big game-breaking ability, especially in the passing game. And with Tyler gone, the big question is who's going to fill that role anywhere on offense.
How does Nathan Peterman feel about working with him?
He's excited about this entire receiving core. Everyone's saying how this is an unproven group. Without Tyler,
that's not a false accusation. It is an unproven group.
It is an unproven group. These guys that they don't have a lot of game experience. You can look at it, but the way the skill sets they bring, and the way that they looked in the spring, and people don't realize that guys improve throughout their college career.
And improve at a much more dramatic rate than what we're used to watching in the pros.
Exactly.
Someone can get a little bit better, but in college, that's why I was asking. Year over year, someone will jump to the front. It's also why I ask you about Peterman, because no one knows their receiving core better than the QB. And because he sees all of their tiny little tendencies in practices and in drills, and that we can't. And if the Panthers do have someone in Henderson who can step up in that role, that's going to be a pretty big boon for them. Kevin Stallings is probably known best in these parts at the moment for being the father of someone who was a catcher for the Pirates this past week. Jacob Stallings getting the call, but he's also Pitt's new basketball coach. And you did a piece, Lance, a little bit ago that was breaking down what he could bring that's different from Jamie Dixon, especially offensively. It's funny that it seems to me like that the reality of what Stallings did at Vanderbilt doesn't match with the statistics or the advanced statistics in terms of possession, shot selection, and everything else here. Why will he be different?
That's the question we're all kind of asking. I mean, this team.
Honestly, it's more like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You hear, he's going to be different, but then you look at all of the tendencies, and it just looks like the same thing.
And the one word that everybody wanted to use, especially when he was hired, and he even kind of said it, is tempo. He said, we're going to play fast.
And
I've always played fast.
I think they
Why
ranked
wouldn't I?
148th or something like that
not
in the NCAA in tempo.
And everybody keeps asking me, well, how much talent did he really have at Vanderbilt? He had 2 guys go in the first round.
NBA, yeah.
And they lost in a play-in game last year. So the biggest question, that's another question, what happened at Vanderbilt that we don't know about? Because the talent was there, and when you look at the tape, this team, they had open shots. And you saw what Kevin Stallings was trying to do. He was exploiting the matchups down low, pass the ball inside, get it back to your talented guards. They just weren't making a lot of shots. I think that was part of it. Their shooting percentage was poor, and the opportunities were there.
Okay.
They were really able to exploit teams' defenses.
Tempo.
Tempo.
We're gonna talk tempo here.
Yeah, let's talk it.
Because the fact is, Kevin Stallings can talk about whatever system he wants or whatever tempo he wants, but he still has the players that he's got. He still has, and this is anything but a knock, he's got Mike Young, he's got Jamel Artis, he's got the good players that Jamie had last year. They're not a running team. They're not a fast break team. And the truth is, they actually weren't necessarily a great half-court team. They relied way too much on Mike inside. There's still nothing without a point guard.
Oh, absolutely. And there is not one clear-cut answer for that position. And when,
I think there was when James Robinson was here, but that's another issue.
And it doesn't matter what offense you're running. If you don't have a point guard, it's not going to work. So
a shooting point guard in this case.
Oh,
There's
exactly.
got to be someone who you can't just be a distributor.
You can't, especially if you look at Stallings' offense or what he says he's going to run. I mean, we don't have a really clear picture of that, especially since you pointed out the personnel doesn't match what he has said he wants to do. But when it comes to a point guard, you need a guy that's going to keep defenses honest. James Robinson wasn't that guy.
You know, one of the many shames of this whole thing, and I don't want to keep burying the decision and everything else, but and I know it was Jamie's decision to leave and all that other stuff, but with Mike Young, with Jamel Artis, with some of their depth, they had really good depth last year, all that team needed, both last year and in the coming year, all that group needed was a point guard who can shoot.
Exactly, and you thought that it was going to come, and before Jamie left, you thought, well, he's going to recruit a point guard, and that's going to be the missing piece, especially with all those guards they have, and they've got nice players. Ryan Luther really took a step forward.
He really did.
He's a really nice stretch
month.
forward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had guys that are really progressing in the right direction, and now there are so many questions regarding this team when you thought that if they had that one piece, that was it. That this team was going to get into the tournament and actually make noise, unlike what they've been able to do the last couple of years.